new day is dawning. New ideas, new rules, new management.
Time to go, my friend.
Ever since John Wick was first released in 2014, it has gained a huge fan following and established itself as one of the most well-known film franchises of all time. The movie's success was followed by a sequel and then a couple more films, and it has also inspired several video games and movies. While Keanu Reeves' portrayal of John Wick has enjoyed the love and support of fans, this critically acclaimed franchise has also introduced us to several other iconic characters, from the Bowery King to Sharon. Today we shall look at every major character in the John Wick franchise and tell you all about them. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, let's begin.
Amen.
1. John Wick. Portrayed by none other than Keanu Reeves, John Wick had quite a reputation as a skilled mercenary, and he had established himself as an iconic figure in the international criminal underworld. He had several aliases, such as Baba Yaga or the Boogeyman, but he eventually retired to a quiet life with his wife Helen Wick. After his wife's death, John lived a low-key life until his former employee, BigoteroSoft's son, Yosef, stole John's car and murdered his dog, Daisy. John couldn't bear to see Daisy dead, and he swore to kill Vigo and Yosef in order to avenge his dog. Vigo tries to reason with John and even make up for his son's actions, but John refuses to listen. While Vigo has no choice but to send assassins to kill John, this formidable killer manages to defeat every last one of them before finally locating Yosef. Eventually, John kills Vigo, Yosef, and other assassins, such as Marquis and Miss Perkins, and he later adopts a pit bull as the movie ends. The commercial success of this film was followed by a sequel where John attempts to get his stolen car back and ends up in trouble with the Dantonio family. Over the course of the franchise, John makes acquaintances with the likes of the Bowery King and the director, and he eventually dies by the end of John Wick 4. John had quite a successful career as an assassin, but he was also known for having a strong moral code and never harming an innocent being.
Oh, he has to die. Sorry, Jonathan. Don't see any other way.
2. Winston. Winston Scott was the owner of the New York Continental Hotel, a shared space for hired killers in New York City, portrayed by Ian McShane. Winston and John Wick's friend and one of the most influential members of the Continental and the entire underground crime scene. While his history is unknown, he forbade any killers to conduct their business on the hotel grounds, and he once even stopped John from killing Joseph Tarasov in his hotel. John later broke this rule when he killed Santino Dantonio in front of Winston at the Continental, which led to him being excommunicated. While Winston disapproved of his actions, he delayed his announcement and gave John enough time to escape the hotel grounds before calling the assassins on him and putting a bounty on his head. When the High Table's Adjudicator visited Winston to look at the events that had transpired, Winston assured that John would be killed and suggested that he had died from a fall. We later learned that John had survived, and it's unclear if Winston intended to fake John's death or if he did intend to kill John. However, the Adjudicator declared that Winston failed to kill John, and the High Table punished him by declaring that he was excommunicado. Winston saw John as a brother and aided him in his fight against the High Table, and later visited his grave with the Bowery King to say his final goodbyes. 3. The Bowery King. Portrayed by Lawrence Fishburne, the Bowery King was a mysterious crime lord who operated from a homeless shelter called the Soup Kitchen. He had recruited several beggars and vagrants to work for him, and he was known for training pigeons to act as messengers. The Bowery King had established an intelligence and data network without using any technology, and he was virtually untraceable. John Wick reached out to him by sending a message by dropping a coin in one of the panhandler's cups, and he was soon taken to the Bowery King, who helped him out. However, the Bowery King was affiliated with the High Table and had to refrain from helping John to please them. When the High Table got their hands on the gun that the Bowery King had given John, they accused him of breaking the rules and even punished him by breaking into the soup kitchen, killing most of his men and even leaving him injured. John later showed up at the scene in an injured state, and the Bowery King then shared his intentions to wage war against the High Table. When John died fighting the High Table, the Bowery King stood by Winston's side while burying John and took care of John's dog.
How good to see you again so soon, Mr. Wick.
4. Sharon. Initially crossing paths with John on a mission where John saved his life, Sharon soon started working at the Continental Hotel. He worked his way up the ladder and became Winston's right-hand man, and his character was portrayed by Lance Reddick. Sharon often aided John during his time at the Continental, even going as far as to care for John's dog while he went on missions. After the High Table declared that John was excommunicado, Sharon wished for John's well-being and even stopped Zero from killing him. He later fought by John's side when the High Table attacked the Continental, and he was at the scene when Winston pushed John off the roof to seemingly help him escape. While Sharon typically appeared calm and collected, he had a soft spot for John and showed unwavering loyalty to Winston. Even when Winston had to confront the Marquis Vincent de Gromont, Sharon stood by Winston's side and protected him at the cost of his own life. Winston greatly valued Sharon and even put the word friend in the epitaph on his gravestone, despite maintaining a professional relationship with him all his life. 5. BigoteroSoft. BigoteroSoft was a crime lord who led the Tarasov mob in New York City. John Wick formerly worked as a hitman for Vigo, who did not wish for him to retire and leave his mob. Vigo sent John on an impossible mission to kill all his rivals in one night, hoping that John might fail and then have to continue working for him. However, John succeeded in killing all of Vigo's rivals, helping his mob attain a higher status in New York before retiring from a life of crime. Eventually, Vigo's son, Yosef, stole John's car and killed his dog, and Vigo, then worried for his son's life, he called John and tried to reason with him, and later resorted to sending him his best hitman after John. Of course, none of these things worked out in his favor, and Vigo tried putting a huge bounty on his head before finally facing him. When John held Vigo at gunpoint, he had no option but to give away his son's location at a safe house in Brooklyn, and he later ended up in a face-off with John. Vigo declared that they would not use any guns and bullets, and they would engage in a fistfight, where Vigo betrayed John by pulling out a knife to stab him in the guts. However, Vigo could not outsmart a seasoned assassin like John, who then pulled the knife out of his stomach and killed Vigo with it.
How much?
Excuse me?
How much for the car?
6. Yosef Tarasov. Portrayed by Alfie Allen, Yosef Tarasov was the only known son of Vigo Tarasov. The Tarasov clan were quite famous in the criminal underworld of New York, and Yosef got involved with John Wick after the latter had already retired. Yosef had his eyes set on John's car and offered to buy it, but John turned down his offer. Yosef broke into John's house to steal his car and kill his dog, and John swore revenge upon him. When Vigo got wind of what had happened, he punched Yosef twice in the stomach while the young boy asked him for a chance to kill John. Vigo was sure that John might overpower his son, and he tried to make amends by reaching out to John. However, this didn't work, and John eventually located Yosef at the safe house in Brooklyn and killed him. Yosef was quite arrogant and self-entitled, and these qualities finally led to his downfall at the hands of John Wick. He didn't have exemplary fighting skills or courage to stand up to his opponents, and he had spent most of his life hiding behind someone else who fought for him. 7. Marquis. Initially working as an old guard, Marquis rose in the ranks and became one of the most elite assassins in New York. He was one of the older members of the Continental, and he had quite a collection of menacing guns and rifles, portrayed by Willem Dafoe. Marquis was like a mentor to John Wick, and he was first seen in the movie at John's wife Helen's funeral. He was later hired by Vigo Tarasov to kill him, and he got a sniper rifle to kill John. While he had the perfect shot, he finally decided against killing him, until he spotted Miss Perkins targeting John. He fired a warning shot at John's bed to alert him of Miss Perkins' presence, and Marquis later helped John free himself from Vigo's men. After John killed Yosef, Miss Perkins noticed that Marquis was working with John, and she snitched on him to Vigo. Marcus was soon taken captive by Vigo's men, and he put up a good fight until Miss Perkins showed up and shot him twice. Marcus survived the shots, and Vigo took it upon himself to shoot Marcus 6 times in succession and kill him.
Room 980. Do enjoy your stay.
8. Miss Perkins. Portrayed by Adrian Palicki, Miss Perkins was spotted at the Continental Hotel with the aim of killing John Wick, despite the hotel's strict rules against killing. Vigo had put a $2 million bounty on Wick's head, and he doubled this bounty for Miss Perkins when she agreed to kill John at the Continental. She did get a chance to kill him, but Marcus spotted her and warned John in time for him to notice her presence. John and Miss Perkins engaged in a fight, but John managed to overpower her and knock her unconscious. When she returned to her senses, Miss Perkins found herself handcuffed to a chair and learned that Winston Scott was not happy with her attempt to kill someone at the Continental. Perkins managed to escape by dislocating her thumb and breaking free from the handcuffs. She made her way to the room where Vigo was torturing Marcus for betraying him, and she even fired 2 shots at Marcus. She then went outside the room to wait for John and ambush him, but Sharon took her away. He told her that she broke the hotel's rules and that her membership had been revoked, and 4 hitmen then shot her, and Sharon disposed of her body.
You working?
9. Cassian. Portrayed by the American rapper Common, this character only appeared in John Wick Chapter 2. He was tasked with the responsibility of guarding Gianna Dantonio, but he left her while she went to change, and John soon cornered her. Gianna was found dead in the bathtub soon after, and Cassian encountered John and figured he'd come up to see her. The two engaged in a fight, but John managed to escape while Cassian called for help. Cassian chased after him with a car and fought him on the streets of Rome before finally ending up at the Continental Hotel. The local manager reminded them that they couldn't kill each other on the grounds, and they ended up at a bar where John told Cassian that he had killed only Gianna because he was forced to. Cassian did see his point, but he was still duty-bound to kill John and avenge Gianna. After John had a $7 million bounty on his head, Cassian headed to New York to find John and kill him. They faced each other and ended up fighting each other with knives on an empty train. John managed to gain the upper hand and stab Cassian in the chest, but he left him with the choice to either pull it out or leave it be. John got off the train at the next stop, and Cassian's fate is ambiguous, as we don't know if he bled and died or if he survived and then decided to stay out of John's way. 10. Zero. Appearing in John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, Zero was a trained assassin who initially led a group of ninja assassins in New York City. When Zero wasn't running crime rings, he ran a street food sushi bar with his students and looked up to John Wick. His character was portrayed by Mark Dacascos, and he was affiliated with the High Table. In fact, the Adjudicator had sent Zero and his students to kill John as well as any other being who had helped John. They first raided Ruska Roma and dispatched the director's guards, and the Adjudicator also showed up and asked the director to pledge her loyalty to the High Table again. However, Zero stabbed her and later arrived at the soup kitchen to get rid of the Bowery King before finally moving on to John. Zero tried to chase after John, but Sharon interrupted him and warned him against killing anyone on Continental grounds. Zero ended up visiting Winston, who refused to step down as the Continental's manager. Moreover, John extended his support to Winston in his decision, and we learn that the Adjudicator sent Zero there to kill both Winston and John. At the end of the day, John got the best of Zero, stabbing him in the chest and leaving him to bleed.
Sophia?
11. Sophia Al-Azwar. Portrayed by Halle Berry, Sophia appeared in John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum. She resided in Morocco alongside 2 Belgian Malinois, training for physical combat, and John asked for her help while dealing with the High Table. Sophia initially refused to get involved, but John reminded her that she needed to honor the marker she gave him several years ago. Sophia eventually obliged and helped John find the elder of the High Table, even though this got her in trouble with her old boss, Barada. Sophia had a no-nonsense personality, and her steadfast and observant nature helped her attain a post as a manager at the Casablanca Continental. She was skeptical of everyone around her and only trusted her 2 combat-trained dogs. Sophia loved these dogs to an unimaginable extent, and she refused to give one of them to her former boss Barada, which got her in trouble with him in the first place. Sophia was a skilled markswoman who preferred handguns and typically used the SIG Sauer PS-65. She was also trained in martial arts styles such as Krav Maga and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and her combat style was quite similar to John's. 12. The Adjudicator. Portrayed by Asia Kate Dillon in John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, the Adjudicator had an important position at the high table when John killed Santino at the Continental. The Adjudicator showed up at the scene and immediately declared that Winston would have to step down as manager. She then went to the soup kitchen to reprimand the Bowery King for helping John and asked him to close the soup kitchen, before finally having him killed. One by one, the Adjudicator dealt with every last one of John's allies and sent Zero to go after John. She later visited a Ruska Roma leader, the director, and punished her for making arrangements for John to escape New York. After asking Zero to stab the director to death, the Adjudicator returned to the Continental to deal with Winston, who refused to give up his role as manager as the Continental. He did manage to convince her to let the hotel remain a neutral zone for the assassins, and he later even pushed John off the hotel's roof to show that he was still loyal to the high table. While the Adjudicator was initially pleased to see that Winston killed John, they didn't find his corpse, and she warned Winston of the consequences they would have to face if John was alive. 13. Santino Dantonio. As the son of the leader of the Dantonio family, Santino was quite disappointed when his father declared that his sister, Gianna, would replace him at the high table. Santino had hoped to take his father's place after his death, and he was so disappointed that he decided to go after Gianna and kill her. When John Wick chose to retire, he visited Santino, who accepted his retirement in exchange for a blood oath, or a marker, with him. When Santino learned that John came out of retirement, he decided to find John and collect his debt. He visited John and showed him the marker, but John refused to redeem this debt. Santino then decided to destroy John's house as revenge, but John survived the attack and eventually came around and agreed to fulfill the marker. Santino sent John to kill Gianna in Rome, but John was unaware of the fact that Santino was also sending his right-hand woman, Ares, to get rid of John once he killed Gianna. After John manages to kill Ares, he decided to kill Santino and get rid of him for once, even if it means that he would have to break the Continental's rules by killing Santino on the hotel grounds. His character was portrayed by Riccardo Scamarcio in John Wick Chapter 2, and he later appeared in Chapter 3 as a corpse. 14. Gianna Dantonio. Portrayed by Claudia Guarini, Gianna Dantonio appeared in John Wick Chapter 2 to take her father's seat at the high table after his death. She led the Kimura clan while her brother seethed in jealousy and plotted her murder. While Gianna attended her coronation party in Rome, Santino sent John Wick to kill Gianna. John and Gianna ended up talking to each other, as Gianna was keen to know who had sent him to kill her. After learning that her brother was after her life, Gianna accepted her fate and decided to go out on her own terms. Instead of letting John kill her, Gianna slit her own wrists while taking a bath, and John then shot her in the head only after she lost enough blood to fall unconscious. Gianna was initially introduced as a ruthless leader, but she comes across as a considerate and affectionate leader who was not greedy to expand her empire. She did express her disappointment when she realized she had to die, but she didn't hold it against John or blame him for wanting to kill her. 15. Ares. Appearing in John Wick 2 and 3, Ares was a mute assassin who worked for Santino, and her character was portrayed by Ruby Rose. She went with Santino when he visited John to recruit him to kill Gianna, and she later even patted John down to ensure he wasn't carrying any weapons before letting him meet Santino. She can be described as Santino's right-hand woman, and she went to Rome to kill John after he completed his mission. After John killed Gianna, Ares followed him from the shadows and finally confronted him along with her team. John killed Ares' team and left her behind, and she later showed up at the Continental to face John, as she knew he wouldn't kill her there. Ares returned to Santino and apologized for not being able to kill John, and she later learned that John had showed up at Santino's party to find and kill him. Ares tried to protect Santino, and even managed to stab John with a knife, but John survived this attack and killed Ares by stabbing her in the chest. As she died, Ares signed the words, "Be seeing you," at John, who was amused by Ares' reaction to her death.
My son, how have you come to be so lost?
Not lost.
16. The Elder. The Elder was the leader of the High Table. After John was declared excommunicado, he visited the Elder, who told him he would undo this decision only if John killed Winston Scott. The Elder further asked John to prove his loyalty by severing his finger with a chisel and handing him his wedding ring and a severed finger. Finally, the Elder gave John a new mission, and he hesitated before accepting it and getting a new suit. In Chapter 4, John visited the Elder and realized the older Elder had been replaced by a new man, who was portrayed by George Giorgio. John wished to get his wedding ring back, but the new Elder stated that it was gone, just like the old Elder. He further told John that the only way he would find peace in life would be by killing himself. And John finally had enough of him and shot him in the head. The High Table was infuriated at John for killing their leader, and they hired Vincent de Gramont to find John and kill him. 17. Shimatsu Koji. First appearing in John Wick Chapter 4, Shimatsu Koji was the manager at Osaka Continental, and his character was portrayed by Hiroyuki Sanada. Koji was first seen reprimanding his daughter, Akira, for allowing a pet in the hotel. Akira then warned Koji that his affiliation with John would put their hotel in trouble with the High Table. Only recently, the Marquis de Gramont had destroyed the New York Continental due to its affiliation with John. However, Koji started fighting with his daughter for even suggesting this, and he later went to meet John when the High Table showed up at the Continental. As Koji appeared before them, he was surprised to see his friend, Kane, had joined hands with Chidi and others. Chidi stated that the High Table declared that the hotel deconsecrated, meaning they could now fight and spill blood on the hotel grounds. Koji stood his ground and refused to let Chidi inspect the place, and a fight soon broke out between the two. While John and Akira aided Koji, he got quite injured and eventually died at the hands of his old friend Kane. 18. Akira. Portrayed by Rina Sawayama, Akira Shimatsu was the daughter of Koji Shimatsu, and she worked as a concierge at the Osaka Continental. She took her job very seriously and warned her father when she felt he was putting her business in trouble. When Chidi and the High Table members showed up at the Continental, Akira realized that her father was hiding John at the hotel. She immediately started preparing for a fight and got shot during the face-off between the High Table members and her father's allies. Eventually, her father was killed by Kane, and he asked Akira to run for her life while taking his last breaths. While Akira did not wish to leave her dying father, she soon left, but not before Kane told her that he would wait for her to find him. After a while, Akira went after Kane and even revealed a blade in her hand, but the movie ended before we found out if she managed to avenge her father's death. 19. Kane. Portrayed by Donnie Yen, Kane reluctantly agreed to work for Vincent de Gramont and killed John Wick after Vincent threatened to kill Kane's daughter. Kane went to the Osaka Continental along with the Gramont's other recruits, where they faced Goji Shimatsu's team. Kane and Koji used to be friends, but Kane ended up killing Koji while John managed to make a narrow escape. After things settled down, Kane chased after John and went to Berlin, where he ended up in trouble with other bounty hunters who were trying to find John. Eventually, John became a member of the High Table and challenged Gramont to a duel, who asked Kane to fight in his stead. Gramont has sent a few more assassins after John to delay him while he arrived at the duel's location, and Kane ended up helping John face them. They finally dueled, but Gramont stepped in at the last moment to take the final shot at John. Kane had to back away to make way for Gramont, who was swiftly killed by John. With Gramont dead, Kane returned to his daughter safely, and it's unknown if Koji's daughter Akira killed him in order to seek revenge. 20. The Marquis Vincent de Gramont. Also known as Vincent Bisset de Gramont, the Marquis was a French aristocrat who wielded much power in the High Table. He went to the New York Continental to punish Winston after he let John escape, and even blew the entire place up and killed Sharon. Grammont then hired Kane to kill John, and he showed up at the Osaka Continental to fight Koji. Even after the Harbinger advised Grammont against indulging so much violence, he continued to hire assassins to kill John until he finally met John on the day of the Rules of the Engagement in Paris, hosted by the Harbinger. Grammont and John play a game to pick the location, weapons, and time for their duel. Grammont later asked Kane to fight for him after threatening to kill his daughter if he didn't. Grammont even tried to sabotage John by making it difficult for him to arrive at the duel's location, and he later asked Kane to step aside and let him fire the final shot. However, John outwitted him and shot him with the last bullet in his pistol. 21. The Harbinger. Appearing in John Wick Chapter 4, the Harbinger was one of the most high-ranking representatives of the High Table. He would ensure that the High Table's rules were enforced properly and settle any fights among their members. Portrayed by Clancy Brown, the Harbinger was initially tasked with the responsibility of visiting the New York Continental and informing Winston about the High Table's decision to destroy the hotel. He later visited Grammont to learn his intentions and call him out for the destruction he caused at the Osaka Continental. The Harbinger was later responsible for overseeing John Wick's duel with Kane, and he once again disapproved of Grammont's decision to arrange this duel. He believed that the High Table's foundation would be shaken up if John were to win the duel, which is precisely what happened. While the Harbinger disapproved of this, he fairly declared that John won and met all his conditions by freeing him from the High Table's bounds and reinstating Winston as the New York Continental manager. 22. Mr. Nobody. Also known as the Tracker, Mr. Nobody was portrayed by Shamir Anderson in John Wick Chapter 4. He had quite an emotional connection with his dog and took it to Osaka Continental, even though it was prohibited. He was quite selective when it came to accepting missions, and he once even turned down an offer to kill John Wick when he felt that pay was low. In fact, he helped John and Koji fight against Chitty and the High Table after deciding against killing John. However, Grammont later forced Mr. Nobody to go after John and kill him, and the Tracker had no option but to comply at this point. He killed many assassins in order to ensure that he had no competition in killing John, and he convinced Grammont to pay him $23 million if he succeeded in doing so. However, Chitty later harmed Mr. Nobody's dog, and Mr. Nobody went after him and killed him when he was about to kill John. In this way, Mr. Nobody coincidentally saved John's life and later rooted for him in his duel against Kane. He was quite happy to see that John killed Grammont, and he later expressed his sadness when John died at the end of the fight. Marvelous verdict. To sum it up, the John Wick franchise is jam-packed with intriguing characters ranging from assassins to crime lords with mysterious origins. These characters enrich the franchise's plot lines and breathe life into the plot. And we can't wait to see what future developments take place in the story arc in upcoming releases. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone!